Alright guys, so I wanted to cover the latest run back with T1. Note this game, they actually subbed out Oner for Guwon, who they moved up from Academy, I believe. They quoted Oner to have some health issues, so this is their first game basically this year without their main roster, the 5 pieces of Exodia together. And to be honest with you, Guwon kind of fit in like a glove. Like, it was just like absolutely chilling. They put it on a clinic as per usual. And I wanted to point out the overall direction. It seems that T1 have figured out the recipe to success. And it just seems like they're willing to run it back until they get punished for it. And clearly they don't get punished for it. So they're super chill with that. So note that the direction of their bans have been switching to getting rid of all these aggressive picks. So they very often, when they set up for their B1 Senna, they'll end up first banning Nautilus. It's just maybe stylistically they don't like dealing with the R1 R2 Nautilus pick, and I've been seeing the Lee Sin come up more as a potential pick. So this is something that's potentially being picked in scrims a lot that allows him to do this way. My hypothesis would probably be same with the Sejuani because of the way the meta is probably shifting, and with the side of Bro, it's not that out of the ordinary. Most teams are going to ban Ashe, Kalista, and it's kind of like picking your poison here. In this case, Bro really don't want to deal with the Faker's Orianna for some reason, so they end up giving the Senna B1. And to me, it's very, very hard to deal with this T1 Senna at this time, but my impression is that if they're willing to let the Senna through, they had something cooked, right? So they go for the Azir, and then they go with Maokai, which is, I would say, fine, right? Nothing to note too much there, right? I don't like the fact of the flex in this case, because the Maokai flex is not a real flex. It's really only going to go jungle viably. I don't think you'd want to pick it into the Senna anyway, unless you're picking something really interesting with it. And I've been seeing the Aatrox pre-pick kind of just come up as the one on top because it has great matchups into pretty much everything, except for maybe a TF Smolder. But the drafts have to be set up to match up against that, and even then, it's actually pretty decent matchup. Because a lot of the TF, rather the Aatrox counters, are not too bad right now, or sorry, they're not too strong right now. So most teams are. It's a very much like an isolated experience. It's like there's a lot of Cassante going on, Udyr, and Aatrox. That's pretty much it. So note the hole that Bro have already dug themselves in, and a lot of teams, because the AD pool is what I would consider to be relatively small, especially in the spectrum of Senna matchups picked in pro play. There's not many options here, so I further encourage teams to see if they could have gone more creative here. I like perhaps there was like some sort of pick that they could have gone for that allowed for more handshaking. Like, I think teams have to reframe the way they see the T1 Senna, especially because yes, there's a lot of choke and you can outscale. Smolder's like the quote unquote safest sort of outscaling champion there is, so maybe that's why they're willing to handshake it. And now in this phase, Bro pretty much have the normal front to back, and T1 also have kind of similar. So it's very normal that Bro are banning the Corki Hui matchups here, because that's pretty much that's mostly what's left in terms of champions that can truly answer. And with only around 4 mid laners in the pool, like there's Faker would have to dig a little bit deeper in order to go for it. But again, it's not like the greatest situation to be in, because you could potentially either flex the Smolder top, which is not ideal, to be honest with you. It's most likely going into the Senna, and then there's no counter into the Aatrox prepared, because there's not really much you can do, right? If you don't have, if your team can if your team can answer a B2 Aatrox, I think there's a problem. And just for context, like the Udyr is not a real answer, because it's actually slightly Aatrox favored. And the fact that he can just get away with this scot-free is not a good sign for Bro, in my opinion. And they probably just prioritized the wrong things. This draft probably would have just been easier if they took a handshake mid lane. And I think this is kind of the theme with Bro, because the last time I covered their drafts, their priorities were a little bit whack as well. And then they saved their R5 for Xin Zhao. So to me, this is really just a mishap overall, just from identifying which things are the lose con or win con for Bro versus T1, and then also what they prioritize. Because the Azir is a fine matchup for picking R1, but it's not like you're gaining much per se, because there's a lot of matchups out there, and you warped your draft. They had a similar issue last time where they warped their draft just around this, and then they give up a lot in exchange, right? Their first 3 for T1, they basically gave up nothing, and they had guaranteed winning lanes on both sides, and that's something that you can't just give T1, especially. Same thing for game 2, in my opinion. They still, in this case, they still believe that certain things are good into specific matchups, but it hasn't been showing results. So I'm really curious as to what has been going through their thought processes and what their practice has been. And T1 have been honestly drafting pretty straightforward. Like, they just follow a formula every game. You know, they pick Sun on blue, they ban Sun on red. In this case, there's 3 ADCs banned. The only one that's in the main pool is Lucian Milio, Lucian Nami combos, and I believe Smolder. Then you step into tier 2 with, let's say, Xayah Rakan or like Ezreal lanes, but like with that many ADCs, man, you know, it's not that great. And again, I think Aatrox stonks are gonna go up here because Bro again prioritized the Azir, but there's lots of room for, like, Faker does not care, by the way. He has lots of room to kind of navigate around this. He's in comfort zone. And again, they trade this B1 Azir for 2 BIS champions in their respective roles. Because Bro, yes, so what was the opportunity cost of Azir? Losing bot lane and losing top lane. And that's a very expensive way to go for it. Also, the Azir Sejuani is probably not enough to sort of make up for it. So it's possible that Bro would just ban the same thing again, but they don't even have resources this time. So Hui is open, and they could even go to Leah. So it's just, and the last draft I covered too, Bro also picked Silver Yumi into the Lucian Nami. So potentially the theory is like they think there's a way to use this matchup to kind of counter Lucian Nami with a scaling version. And maybe it's like nuking the wave on wave 2, and then you're just never allowing the Lucian Nami to interact. But T1 arguably have entire map to play through in terms of lanes yet again. And you see what I mean, where they just cash themselves in similar scenarios. I'm not sure if Bro thinks this is good. Do you know what I mean? It could be that they just think this is good, and maybe it's just incorrect. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like flame them, but it's a little bit rough, if I'm gonna be honest with you. And yeah, and even with Oner being subbed out here, like, some things are not gonna change. Like, it's no wonder that Guwon was able to pilot this so well, because it's so clear how they can play through this. He's given everything he needs to really thrive. Like, you know, a jungler is always gonna look good. Here's the thing: a jungler is always gonna look good if his lanes are just in really good spots all the time, right? He can do whatever he wants, and that's basically what he's set up here to do. And you know, that was basically the basis behind these T1 drafts. And I think they just have a recipe commanded by their players as well, being able to execute, and it's just really hard for any team to crack them right now. So yeah.